The air in the great hall of the Krell Empire was thick with the smell of ozone and the heavy weight of expectation. High-gravity worlds like Krell were not built for the weak. Everything here was made of dense, dark stone and reinforced steel. The Krell themselves were massive creatures, covered in thick, insect-like plating, their 4 eyes glowing with a predatory yellow light. In the center of the hall, the Galactic Council waited. This was a monumental day. The Human Republic was sending its first diplomatic envoy to the most dangerous sector of the galaxy. Every species in the Council followed the same rule of survival. Power is visible. The Zorgans had arrived earlier that morning, flanked by 12 floating combat drones and guards wearing shimmering energy shields. The Xylos followed, their protectors carrying massive pulse rifles that could level a building. To these species, weapons were a language. They told everyone else, "Do not touch me." Then the human ship docked. When the heavy blast doors of the hall hissed open, a hush fell over the room. Out stepped Ambassador Sarah Jenkins, a small woman in a simple blue suit. But it wasn't Sarah that the council stared at. It was the 2 men walking behind her. They were guards, but they looked like nothing the council had ever seen. They wore plain black suits, white shirts, and dark ties. They carried no rifles. No energy blades hung from their belts. They didn't even have visible earpieces or tactical vests. Their hands were empty, hanging loosely at their sides. "Are the humans mocking us?" whispered Krell General, his mandibles clicking in frustration. "They bring 2 hairless apes with no armor to a world of warriors." The Krell captain, a scarred veteran named Vrax, narrowed his eyes. He didn't see weakness. He saw something else. He watched the way the 2 humans moved. They didn't look around with fear. Their eyes scanned the room with a rhythmic, mechanical precision. They didn't look like soldiers. They looked like predators who were bored. "Let us test their resolve," Vrax commanded softly into his wrist link. As the humans walked across the long bridge toward the council's throne, the Krell triggered a security malfunction. A massive, heavy-duty cargo crane accidentally snapped, sending a 2-ton crate refined or hurtling toward the walkway. It whistled through the air, a metal mountain aimed directly at the ambassador's head. The Xylos diplomats screamed and scrambled back. The Zorgan drones hummed as they prepared to fire. The humans didn't scream. One guard, a man named Elias, didn't even look up at the falling crate. He simply stepped in front of the ambassador. He didn't draw a shield. He didn't run. He just planted his feet, his shoulder muscles tensing under his suit jacket. He looked like he was preparing to catch a ball, not a falling building. At the very last second, the crate slammed into an emergency magnetic rail, missing the group by an inch. The wind from the impact whipped the guards' ties over their shoulders. They didn't flinch. They didn't blink. Their heart rates, monitored by the hidden sensors in the room, didn't even rise. Captain Vrax felt a chill crawl down his spine. He realized that the humans didn't bring weapons because they didn't think the Krell were a threat. They were walking into a room full of monsters, and they felt perfectly safe. "The test has failed," Vrax whispered. "They aren't brave. They are something much worse." The diplomatic gala was a sea of glittering jewels, strange perfumes, and hidden agendas. The council had moved the meeting to a grand glass dome overlooking the jagged mountains of Krell. Under the soft purple light of the planet's moon, the tension felt like a wire stretched to the breaking point. While the other diplomats sipped exotic nectars and bragged about their planetary fleets, the 2 human guards, Elias and Thorn, stood like statues. They didn't eat. They didn't drink. They stood 10 feet behind Ambassador Jenkins, their shadows long and still on the marble floor. "Tell me, Ambassador," the Krell High Archon said, his voice deep and gravelly, "why do your protectors hide their teeth? Are humans so peaceful that they fear the sight of a blade?" Sarah Jenkins smiled politely, taking a small sip of water. "On Earth, Archon, we have a saying, the loudest dog has the weakest bite. My guards aren't here to show off. They are here to ensure I finish my dinner." The Archon laughed, but the sound was cut short by a sudden, violent explosion. The massive reinforced glass of the dome shattered. Black-clad figures swung down on high-tension cables. Krell separatists, known for their hatred of outsiders. They were armed with sonic screamers, weapons that fired concentrated bursts of sound waves. These waves were designed to shatter bone and turn internal organs into liquid. The room descended into absolute chaos. The Zorgan guards panicked. Their energy shields, designed to stop lasers, were useless against sound. They collapsed instantly, clutching their heads as blood leaked from their ears. The Xylos guards tried to aim their pulse rifles, but the sonic vibrations made their hands shake so violently they dropped their weapons. The assassins landed, their boots heavy on the floor. They leveled their screamers at the human table. "Get down!" a Zorgan diplomat shrieked. But the humans didn't get down. Elias and Thorn moved in perfect synchronization. They didn't reach for guns. They reached for the heavy oak table. With a grunt of effort that sounded like a tectonic plate shifting, they flipped the 1,000-pound table onto its side. It provided a temporary barrier. But the sonic waves were already slamming into it, vibrating the wood so hard it began to smoke. Thorn stayed with the ambassador, his body hovering over hers like a shield of living meat. Elias, however, did something insane. He stepped around the table. The assassins turned their weapons on him. They fired at point-blank range. The air distorted. The sound was a physical wall of agony that should have stopped a charging beast. Elias's suit jacket tore at the seams as his muscles expanded. His face turned a deep, angry red. The capillaries in his eyes burst, turning the whites of his eyes into solid crimson. But he didn't fall. He didn't even slow down. The Krell assassins froze in terror. Their weapons were at full power, yet this human was walking to the sound waves as if they were nothing more than a stiff breeze. He was a biological impossibility. Elias reached the first assassin. He didn't use a martial arts kick or a fancy move. He simply grabbed the barrel of the sonic weapon with one hand and squeezed. The reinforced alloy crumpled like a soda can. Then, with a single short punch to the assassin's chest plate, Elias sent the 200-pound alien flying across the room and through a stone pillar. The other assassins backed away, their yellow eyes wide. They realized too late that they weren't fighting a soldier. They were fighting a creature that had evolved on a world where the gravity tried to crush you every day. To a human, a deadly sonic wave was just a vibration they were built to endure. High above the chaos of the gala, in a secure observation room, the Council's chief medical officer, a spindly alien named Dr. Eris, stared at a holographic monitor. The room was filled with the sound of rapid, high-pitched chirping, the sound of medical scanners hitting their alarm limits. "Something is wrong," Eris whispered, his 3 hands trembling over the controls. The human, his readings are impossible. The sensors must be broken. On the screen, a 3D heat map of guard Elias's body glowed a violent, pulsing white. While the Krell assassins continued their futile attack, the hidden scanners on the walls were doing a deep dive into humans' internal systems. "Look at the bone density," Eris pointed out to the High Command. "Human skeletons aren't just support structures. They are reinforced with mineral deposits that make them as hard as industrial ceramics. They evolved on Earth, a world with a gravity pull that would snap a Zorgan spine. To a human, our standard gravity feels like walking through a dream." But that wasn't the part that terrified the doctor. He zoomed in on the human's bloodstream. "They are self-poisoning," a general noted, looking at the chemical levels. "Is he dying?" "No," Eris replied, his voice shaking. "He's waking up. It's called adrenaline. It's a chemical compound their bodies produce in times of extreme stress. It shuts down their ability to feel pain. It pushes their muscles past the safety limits. Right now, that human's brain is telling his body that he is an immortal god of war. He can't feel the sonic waves. He won't feel his own bones breaking. He will keep killing until his heart literally explodes." Down in the hall, the scene was grisly. Elias had grabbed the second assassin. The Krell warrior was twice the size of the human, but Elias lifted him off the ground by the neck. The human's pupils had disappeared, replaced by a wide, black void of pure focus. The scanner showed Elias's heart rate hitting 220 beats per minute. In any other species, this would be a fatal heart attack. In a human, it was a combat state. "Stop the attack." Dr. Eris screamed into comms. "You don't understand. We thought they were weak because they didn't bring guns. But they didn't bring guns because a gun is a limiter. A gun can run out of power. A gun can jam. But a human in an adrenaline-fed rage is a self-repairing, heat-seeking engine of destruction. One of the Krell assassins managed to draw a vibro blade and slashed it across Elias's arm. The blade cut through the suit and drew blood. For a second, the council thought the human would fall. Instead, Elias looked at the wound. He didn't wince. He didn't cry out. He looked back at the assassin and smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was a baring of teeth, the ancient signal of a predator that has found its prey. They don't use weapons, Eris whimpered, covering his eyes, because they're the weapons. The Krell High Archon had seen enough. He didn't want a diplomatic incident. He wanted to end the embarrassment. He signaled for his elite iron shells, 6 massive, 4-arm hulks encased in heavy power armor. These were the strongest warriors in the sector, built to crush tanks with their mechanical fists. The iron shells marched into shattered gala, their heavy boots cracking the marble. They surrounded the 2 humans and the ambassador. The sonic weapons had stopped, leaving a ringing, eerie silence in the room. Elias stood in the center of the circle. His suit was ruined, his arm was bleeding, and his eyes were still that terrifying, pitch-black void. He didn't look like a diplomat anymore. He looked like something that had crawled out of a nightmare. "Stand down, human." The lead iron shell boomed, his voice amplified by his helmet. "You are outmatched. Your biological tricks cannot break Krell steel." Elias took a slow, deep breath. His chest expanded unnaturally wide. When he spoke, his voice was low, vibrating with a guttural growl that felt like a physical weight in the room. "You think we're unarmed," Elias said, his voice echoing. "But in the Republic, my partner and I are classified as Level 5 Kinetic Hazards. Do you know why?" The lead iron shell stepped forward, raising a massive mechanical fist. "Because you are arrogant." "No," Elias whispered. "It's because of the math." Suddenly, Elias moved. It wasn't a run, it was an explosion. In the blink of an eye, he was inside the iron shell's guard. He didn't punch the armor. He grabbed the hydraulic joints of the alien's power suit. With a roar that shook the remaining glass in the dome, Elias twisted. The sound of screaming metal filled the hall. The human's muscles bunched and corded like steel cables. Under the sheer force of his hysterical strength, the reinforced titanium of the Krell armor began to buckle. Elias wasn't just hitting them. He was using his body as a pry bar. He ripped a massive armor plating right off the iron shell's chest, exposing the terrified alien underneath. Then he used a heavy metal plate as a shield, swinging it with one hand to smash a second guard across the room. Across the circle, Thorn, who had been silent until now, joined in. While Elias was a whirlwind of rage, Thorn was a surgeon of violence. He moved with a terrifying economy of motion, using the alien's own momentum against them. He grabbed a 4-armed warrior and flipped him over his shoulder. The alien hit the ground so hard the floorboards shattered. The council members watched in horror from the balconies. They realized the truth. A gun is a tool with a limit. A gun can only fire so fast. But human fueled by adrenaline and millions of years of evolution has no fire rate. They are a constant stream of kinetic energy. "We don't carry weapons," Elias growled, standing over the pile of broken elite guards, "because we didn't want to bring anything into this room that we could use to kill you too quickly. We wanted to give you a chance to surrender." The iron shells were broken. The unbreakable Krell steel was twisted and torn like scrap paper. The humans hadn't just won. They had dismantled the very idea of Krell's superiority. The dust and smoke settled slowly. The Grand Gala was a ruin of twisted metal and shattered stone. The unbeatable Krell warriors lay in heaps, their power armor peeled open like fruit. In the center of the wreckage, Elias and Thorn stood perfectly still, their breath coming in heavy, rhythmic clouds in the cool night air. The council members drifted back to the balconies, looking down in a mix of terror and awe. They expected the humans to be gloating. They expected a display of dominance. Instead, they saw something that made their skin crawl even more. As the adrenaline began to fade, the void in Elias's eyes disappeared. The terrifying predator was gone. He walked over to Ambassador Jenkins, his movements suddenly gentle. He checked her for injuries with a level of care that seemed impossible for a man who had just ripped steel with his bare hands. Up in the observation room, Dr. Eris was still staring at the medical data. His eyes were wide as he pointed to a new set of graphs on the screen. It wasn't just the adrenaline, Eris whispered to the council leaders. Look at the secondary chemical release. This is what we missed. What is it? The High Archon asked, his voice shaking. Another combat drug? No, Eris replied. It's called oxytocin. In humans, it is a hormone of love and bonding. It is what a parent feels for a child. It is what a mate feels for a partner. The room went silent. The council members didn't understand. Why would a warrior be flooded with the chemicals of love in the middle of a bloodbath? Don't you see? Eris continued, his voice cracking. The humans don't fight because they hate the enemy. They fight because they love what is behind them. When those assassins attacked the ambassador, these guards didn't see a target. They saw a member of their pack. Their brains didn't just trigger a fight-or-flight response. It triggered a protective parental instinct. The doctor pulled up a final comparison chart. A human fighting for money or glory is dangerous. But a human fighting to protect their family, that is a biological anomaly. Their brains literally remove the self-preservation instinct. They will let their own hearts burst and their own bones shatter if it means the person behind them stays safe. Down below, Ambassador Jenkins looked up at the council. She smoothed her hair and adjusted her glasses. She looked perfectly calm, as if she were standing in a library rather than a battlefield. I believe we were discussing trade routes, she said, her voice clear and sweet. The High Archon looked at the two guards. They were once again standing with their hands folded, looking like simple men in suits. But now, the council knew the truth. Those suits weren't hiding weapons. They were hiding a biological furnace of loyalty and violence. The narrator's voice fades and over a shot of the human ship, leaving the planet. The galaxy learned a dark lesson that day. Humans are the only species that evolved to turn love into a weapon. They don't carry guns because they don't need them. Their hearts are the most dangerous things in the universe.